First, I've been requested to read a word from our sponsors. I apologize for this. AbbVie Bioresearch Center here in Worcester employs 750 employees in research and development and manufacturing. They have expertise of a proven pharmaceutical leader and the focus on all that. Let's go forward. We have a terrific panel for you here today. These are some very distinguished gentlemen in our information technology industry. They all own local organizations within the Massachusetts area, and I believe you'll enjoy this quite a bit. Our panelists include Alan Falcon of Cumulus Global. Alan's very good. Alan's topic will be cloud computing. We have Mark Ayotte from Ayacht Technologies Solutions. And we have Machado from Machado Consulting. I'm your moderator, Gavin Livingstone with Bryley Systems. We'll start with Alan. Alan has a very interesting mix of technology interests, from computer programming through stint in marketing, but probably more often in the high end of the information technology world as a chief information officer. He got excited sometime around 2006 and decided to form Cumulus Global, which has its office in Worcester, Massachusetts, and satellite offices throughout the Northeast. Alan has over 25 years of expertise in our area, and his focus really, he said, boy, managed IT makes a lot of sense, let's get proactive, but let me see what I can bring to the party. Let me make it somewhat a bit different, and I presume that means cloud-oriented, and all the rest is history. He's doing extremely well, and so is his company. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Alan Falcon.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here. I always enjoy talking with small, mid-sized business owners, and executives, and decision makers. So I know we have time left over at the end. We plan for Q&A, so hopefully we'll have some good, robust discussion there as well. The interesting thing that I find about cloud computing is how so much of what's happening in the industry is not targeted at us, the small and mid-sized business owners. It's really focused on enterprise, because a lot of the vendors feel that that's where the revenue is, so that's what they're chasing. But when we look at the impact of cloud computing on our larger customers and on our small and mid-sized businesses, the impact for small and mid-sized businesses is just so much greater for a couple of things. And so the first thing I want to sort of talk about is, very briefly, what is cloud computing? I forget which one, but at some point one of our US Supreme Court justices once made a comment about pornography, saying, I can't give you a definition, but I know it when I see it. The same can be true for cloud computing. There is actually a very finite, rigid definition of what cloud computing is. The reality is most things, when most vendors come to you and talk to you about cloud computing, it's probably actually not technically cloud computing. It might be shared services, it might be hosted solutions, it might be co-located. There are a number of varieties. But it might actually not be running on a quote-unquote cloud by the literal definition infrastructure. To which I say, who cares? Don't worry about that. When I talk about cloud computing, I'm talking about using computing services that are not on-premise, where you, as the business owner, don't need to worry about 7x24 operations, you don't need to worry about the hardware or the logistics, but it should have some attributes that you want in your environment. One, your cloud, anything that's being sold to you as cloud should be offered as a service. Right? You should be able to pay for it based on your utilization. Now, maybe that's the number of people using the service, maybe it's the amount of data or the amount of processing you use, but it should be as a service. Secondly, it should be scalable. So the resources that the vendor offers you should appear to be infinite, which means if you call your vendor up and say, hey, it looks like we're running low, I need more capacity, or I need to add 2 more users, if their response is, well, we have to move you to a bigger machine, that's not good. The answer should be, okay, we've flipped the switch, you're good to go. And whether your contract is monthly and you're paying on a monthly basis based on your utilization, your head count, whatever, or annual, it should be that service model with those infinite resources. The third thing we look for is device independence. Cloud implies, cloud computing got its name because nerds like me used to draw diagrams of networks. And rather than drawing a line between New York and Chicago, we draw a little cloud and draw some lines to it. Well, it goes up there out into the telephone network and comes down at the other end. Highly sophisticated, research, scientifically based, I tell you. As you look for it, one of the things we look for is obviously cloud computing is provided over the internet or sometimes private network connections to a cloud service, and I could answer questions about that if folks are interested. But the key is that ideally it should be device independent. Now you might need an app on your phone and on your Mac and on your PC and on your Android or your iOS device, or you might just use a browser, but you shouldn't have to buy any specific hardware for that end component. Okay, even so, a great example of this in the small business space, how many of you have seen Square? The credit card processor, right? So here's something, okay, so you need a physical mechanism to read the device, right? So they have to send you the Square, but what does it do? It plugs into the audio port in your iPad or now your Android device, and it gives it. So they don't really care if you're running an Apple, iPhone, or whose Android phone you're running. They even have versions now that plug into USB ports in computers. The device isn't clear. So long as you have their mechanism that reads the magnetic stripe, their software and their system works and they can process your transactions in real time from anywhere, not just behind the cash register station in a physical brick and mortar retail outlet. The other thing that we look for, and technically it's not part of the cloud definition, because security is a service separately, but we look for cloud services that are secure. And what's fascinating is the way you secure your cloud is really not much different than what you need to do to secure your internal systems, right? There should be physical security, there should be logical security, you should control access. Your data should have levels of encryption. But there are things that you can do in the cloud that are easier to do than when you have on-premise systems, such as sharing files, right? So old school, you have your Exchange email server sitting in a closet or under someone's desk somewhere. You send an email with, that you shouldn't have with sensitive information to someone at another company. It's out there in the world, right? Now, granted, you have that positive act. Well, in the cloud, that file might be sitting up on a file service in a secure data center. If you share that file with someone externally, it's no different than sending the email. So we look for solutions that have security measures in place that not only help you create the secure environment that you need that's based on your business at various levels. Some information you just want to keep private, if you've got human resources information, you have to worry about PCI and HIPAA, and if you deal with credit cards, you have to worry about PCI, and if you're involved in financial services, there's SEC and FINRA and all those fun stuff. But whatever level is appropriate for your business, that not only does the service provide the infrastructure to make that possible, to be secure, but ideally provide some method to monitor and manage. So for example, when we work with medical practices, we put in a system that actively scans files while they work on it, and compares the content of the files against business rules, and then checks the permissions of those files, and will automatically notify the person that the system is changing the permissions. Like, ooh, it looks like you just typed a social security number, and this document was shared with everyone in the company. We're going to strip that permission off and make you share it explicitly on a need-to-know basis. And that happens in near real time as they're typing the document in the system. And so you have that kind of sophistication. The big benefit where we are with cloud today are the number of options that are available. We see our average small, mid-sized business customer runs between 4 and 11 different cloud services. Some of them are decided upon by the company, as they should be. Others are decided upon by the individuals. We sometimes call that shadow IT, or I like to call it rogue IT, right? Because as a business owner, one of the aspects you want to make sure is that the data in your business that belongs to your business is the property of your business and is being used and managed properly. Not only for your internal operations, but out of respect and even necessity with your customers and your clients. It's pretty important. So we always look to make sure that as people think about going into the clouds, they take a couple of steps. In fact, I wrote a soon-to-be-published blog post about this morning. And it's plan before you plunge. Most businesses that we've seen that have moved into the cloud, particularly on the advice of maybe an IT provider or cousin Sal or nephew David, the 14-year-old tech wizard in your family, people look and say, gee, I don't want my email server anymore, so I'm going to go to a hosted solution or cloud solution for email. By not planning before they take that plunge, what happens is, fine, they replace what they had. And it might save them money too. But chances are that cloud environment they move to has a whole range of capabilities that you're unaware of, that let you operate differently and more efficiently. So we always recommend step one is to step back and plan. Say, okay, yes, we want to get rid of our on-premise email because it's expensive and it's hard to maintain. We can do it in the cloud and there's better integration with our mobile devices, and give you a million reasons why that's a good thing, beyond cost. But once your email's up there, the way you share files, the way you communicate and collaborate can change. Both Google Apps and Office 365 come embedded with free voice and video conferencing services, as well as secure instant messaging. And so when I walk into a company, I see 4 generations of workers quite often, right? Face-to-face meeting, I'll give you a call, I'll send you an email, let's text. You can probably guess the age range of the employee, right, with those 4 levels, right? But you have this capability that says, you know what, instead of picking up the phone and calling someone and leaving a message, I'll chat and say, are you available? And instead of just trying to talk over the phone and sense their reaction, let's do a one-on-one or a small group video conference for this meeting and see the physical reactions. 55% of communication is nonverbal. That's why my hands fly around a lot when I talk. Right? Keeps everyone awake. So you have all these capabilities that can change the way you work, can change the efficiency of how you work, can accelerate your business. In fact, in the Office 365 environment, there are features that come with the Office 365 suite that are impossible to get if you're running that comparable environment on-premise. Artificial intelligence-driven search and data gathering. So if a customer calls up with a question and you look up that customer, it will pull data from every single system that you own. It's big data for small business, and it's a free component. Business analytics tools that are available in the online environment that let you track key performance metrics out of your existing data and your existing systems that can help you run your business more efficiently. So step back, plan before you plunge. Look at not only replacing what you have, but think about the 3 to 5 challenges. If you've ever said, I'm frustrated if or when, I wish I could do this, I wonder if I could do that, or I need to do this. Make a list of those things, and as you move into the cloud, say, are we not just replacing what we're doing, are we solving those problems? Are we answering those questions? You'll end up with a much stronger solution that'll value your business. When we look at 5-year value for a cloud migration, most of our customers see cost savings in the range of 30% to 70%, but it's the numbers that we get feedback such as sales cycles that are 10% shorter. Time to client delivery of a consulting document drops by 40%. Right? Customer satisfaction rates go up. It's those types of metrics that make your business stronger. And the beautiful thing about cloud, particularly for our type of small, mid-sized companies, is that you're getting this enterprise-grade capability. The same tools that the Fortune 1000 companies are using, and you pay for it as you use it, and it's available to you as a small business. It can really give you a competitive advantage. Thank you.
Alan, did you want to mention anything about security in the cloud before we move on to Mark? You still have a couple minutes.
I have a couple minutes. So security, with cloud, security is important. So the first rule of thumb about security is pretty much any reputable cloud provider you work with, maybe with the exception of Dropbox. Whatever they're providing you is going to be more secure than what you're doing in-house. You think about the infrastructure that Microsoft and Google and Box and Salesforce run, their business, their multi-bazillion dollar businesses depend on never having breaches. And so they've got the technology and the capability designed into their infrastructure, into their operations to be secure. Now, how you use it will really determine how secure the environment is. So it is something we look at. It's something we're cognizant about. And there are some human behaviors that can put you at greater risk. What's interesting is there's a security service that we see as the single most valuable service that most small mid-sized businesses can invest in. But it's sort of like life insurance. It's a hard sell, and that is web filtering. So today, you are 20 times more likely to get malware on your phone, your Mac, your iOS, your tablet, or your PC by visiting a website you trust than any other means, including the phishing attacks you hear about and the scammers calling pretending to be from the IRS, all of that. In the last 18 months, CNN has found malware on their site put in by hackers who hacked their site without CNN's knowledge on 7 occasions. And so you go to read a news story and you go to play the video, and in a blip of a millisecond between the commercial they may force you to watch and the news feed, a little piece of code gets downloaded to your machine that sometime in the future is going to connect to a server somewhere, probably in Eastern Europe or Russia, and is going to start sending information along. Your email address, to a hacker, a valid email address is worth about $7 on the black market. Credit card numbers only go up from there, right? So even as a small business, we think, well, I don't have any intellectual property. China's not going to break into my business to steal my trade secrets. No, but there's probably some guy in Eastern Europe who would love to capture a credit card number from one of your employees while shopping, when they do their shopping over their lunch break. And guess what? If they can get your customer information, so much the better, because if worst comes to worst, that lines up who they're going to attack next. So there are some great services and great capabilities. I assume everyone here is antivirus running on their desktops like you should. You should all have spam and virus protection on your email services like you should. It's the web filtering that we see as the big gaping hole.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Alan. Our next panel, pardon me, we're going to hold the question and answers till the end. Thank you. Our next panelist is Mark Ayotte of Ayotte Technologies in Bolton, Massachusetts. Mark's topic will be mobility within the workforce, and Mark is uniquely positioned to present this topic. He's a very hands-on manager involved in the sales and management as well as the project management within the company. They've done some very high-profile activity in the mobility and wireless space. I believe Mark has just recently, the way he phrased it was, I was on the continent, I beg your pardon, I was in the country but out of the continent. So he's been abroad, he's been within the United States on many high-level organizations that look for this type of service. And ladies and gentlemen, I give you Mark Ayotte.
Thanks, David. So, whoops, hang on, we're going to get to some slides.
If you can give me just a second here, I can adjust.
I'll get started anyway. Today we have, most of you all carry a smartphone. You all have a laptop, you have tablets. Smartphones and tablets have outpaced the sale of PCs and laptops in the last year. So we're putting more of those devices in more people's hands because they're more mobile. They're easier for us to carry around, they're easier to use, they last longer on battery. You don't have to carry a big backpack like I carry to carry. You're like my sales guy, he has a little portfolio and he's got everything he needs with him to do his job. Because of that, and back in the day when the smartphone first came out, it was interesting. We looked at it, we're like, oh, this is great, we're gonna be able to do everything on this little, teeny screen. And then you started looking at the apps and you go, no, I can't do much on this screen. You had to have it formatted, you have to go to multiple pages. And then Apple developed this device called the tablet. And we all freaked out. It was crazy. It's like, oh my God, it's big, I can see it, it's awesome. And since then, it's skyrocketed. So mobility kind of just took off. And that's only in the last 5 years or so that it's really, really taken off. And we see a huge upswing in what you can deliver mobile to the end user. So we find we do a lot of work in the hospitality, a lot of work in big venues. And every single person, believe it or not, is usually carrying 3 devices with them. It's amazing. I mean, they're carrying a phone with them, they're carrying a tablet, And a lot of people still are carrying a laptop, mainly because their business is requiring them to have that laptop. And the other two devices that they have are their own, what we call BYOD devices, their tablet, their smartphone, and they prefer to use those devices more often, but sometimes they just need that laptop because of the business application. So with mobility, we had this amazing thing happen where network access became ubiquitous. We started installing hotspots everywhere. We got great 4G cellular networks. Your home network got better. Comcast and Fios came to the house. You installed these great Wi-Fi access points and everything. And now we don't need wires. And we can go anywhere we want and we can get access to the network. So we no longer need to plug into that little jack in the wall. We can go anywhere in the world and use the network. Because of that, poor IT has no idea what network we're on at any time. The old days, they used to know we were plugged into the wall, and that's where we were, and they could control us, and they could handle what we needed to be done, and that's created a huge, huge gaping hole for IT. IT's been trying to catch up ever since that whole Wi-Fi thing happened and the whole cellular world came. The other thing that's occurred in the last few years is small to medium-sized businesses taken a huge, huge advantage of the employee having these tablets and these smartphones in what we call BYOD, bring your own device. It's a lot cheaper, and move to the next slide. Okay, so it's a lot cheaper for me as a business owner to say, hey, Sean, use your own phone. I'll pay for your service or something like that. So it was not long ago that we just had a phone and a computer, and they were separate devices. Now we've combined those devices into one device, and as recently as I said, we've combined it into the tablet at the bottom. The Microsoft Surface that came out just a couple of years ago has really revolutionized it because it kind of came with that detachable keyboard. And believe it or not, that device is really, we're finding, revolutionizing the fact that people aren't asking to buy a laptop anymore. They're going, hey, can I have one of those Surface-looking type of devices? I want the detachable keyboard, but I want to be able to use it as a tablet. You know, they want that type of mobility. People want to be able to carry it wherever they can go. So, you know, with that, most employees, there was a survey done, have said that they are more productive out of the office than they are in the office. I don't know if that surprises anyone. All of my employees actually come to me and argue with me, can I go home and work because I'm distracted here at the office? People are coming in, talking to me, doing this. I have this project I need to get done. I'd like to go home and work from home. And we have a policy that allows everybody to work from home whenever they need to work from home now. Because of that, they are more productive. We've seen it. It would take them a week to get done. They get done in a couple of days, and then they're back in the office. Because of that mobility, because of that working from home, we've extended the people's workday. It's great. Mobility is great for that. I mean, we're getting 10, 12 hours out of our employees as a business owner versus years ago, 8 hours. They had to go home, cook dinner for the kids. They had no access to their systems. Now they go home, they help them with their homework, they cook dinner. At 8 or 9 o'clock, they're getting back on, they're checking email, they're responding to customers. They're now being interactive late at night with everything. They're getting more done. And guess what? Our customers are happier because they're getting instant response. It's creating a more connected workforce to your customers. You know, that is all being done by mobility. Until we could take the computer out of the office and use it at home, and use it anywhere we wanted, we couldn't do that. We were tied to the desk. The days of being tied to the desk aren't there anymore. So sounds great, right? Catch a game, right? And work at the same time. I mean, what's better than that? It's the best thing in the world, right? We have, as I said before, we have public hotspots, cellular networks, home networks. This ubiquitous network, wherever we go, you click your phone up, you can see all the list, all the networks, you look for one that's that's open. You know, I can get on this one. I got to put in a little information, maybe give away my email address to Eastern Europe, and away I go. Though I'm on the network, so I can do what I want to get done. And most employees, most people don't understand the thing about security. Okay, it's a real problem for IT. It's a problem for guys like Alan and me. All of us, Helen, Gavin. We're fighting it constantly because we're like, you can't just do that. You have to think securely when you do something, because giving your email address out to somebody is giving one of your pieces of information out to them. So, but this ability to go to a baseball game and answer a phone call from a customer to get that big deal or land something is something that we didn't have 10, 15 years ago. To be able to look up and do a quote there at the ballpark, send it to the customer, have the customer do it, and not have to be tied to your desk. Or take that customer to the game, be entertaining them, and while he's sitting there, he says, oh, I'm ready to sign. Hang on a minute, let me pull out my tablet, my sales guy. Here, just accept here on the quote valet thing, and you're all set. Good. Now we celebrate, and we have a new network being installed. That type of connectivity was not available 5, 10 years ago. It's there today. It's especially there because of this cloud computing, because these applications have moved out of just inside our office out to the cloud, because you have unlimited bandwidth in the cloud. I mean, you have multiple data centers. You really have a lot you can do. So I'm going to move quicker because I'm falling behind. So, this sounds like utopia, right? I get my own employee to buy the $500 to $1,000 device. I didn't have to spend that capital. That's great, right? They're bringing it to me. Maybe I'll pay their service. Maybe I'll pay a portion of it, however it works. They work outside the office and they work extended hours. Now I'm getting 12 hours. I'm only, a day. I'm only paying for 8. I mean, this is great. We have much more productivity with less people. Customers are happier because they have better service from us. All these things are happening. Communication between our employees is up. I mean, I talk to a lot of my employees at night. We see what happened during the day. We get ready for the next day. I don't have to wait till the next morning to see them and try to get things lined up. It's an owner, a manager's dream, right? There's always a catch, right? There's a hook. There's got to be a hook, right? The next one shows you we have lost complete control of the data flow with this new mobility thing. What we used to have was an internal protected network with a nice firewall, with web filtering, with antivirus and all these things behind our nice protected firewall, and we were safe. Our IT guys knew where we were coming from and where we were going to and could keep us protected. Today, you take that bring your own device tablet that IT doesn't control, has no application on it to control, the company doesn't own it, and you put it outside your firewall. You have just taken what we in the IT world call and created yourself a backdoor into your network. It's a really big problem, and if you don't have control of that device, that device is probably the single biggest danger to your network out there. This device right here I'm talking about, just letting the employee connect these devices to your network is the single biggest danger to you, whether it's tablet, whatever it is. Without this security, you have a problem, and they've circumvented all of your security protocols. You guys, if you're a business owner, you've spent a lot of money on these security protocols, on firewalls, antivirus, web filtering, anti-spam. You're spending thousands of dollars a year if you're a small business, probably tens of thousands if you're a medium, and hundreds of thousands of dollars in large businesses to just protect your internal data, and you've just circumvented every bit of that by allowing that user to connect to the local network. So it's a big problem, and if any of the words at the bottom here sound familiar to you, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about the mass privacy laws, we're talking about HIPAA, we've already heard of, SOX, GLBA, all those things. But keeping mobility, next slide is, keeping mobility and your sanity can happen, okay? First thing you have to do is you have to write something down. You have to have a bring your own device policy if you're going to allow these devices on your network. And it has to be written and it has to be very solid. It has to have acceptable use policies just like your internal network. It has to have security requirements just like your internal network. What devices you will support or not support. You don't have to support every device in the world, and you can put people into a little bit of a box. I'm only going to support Apple, or I'm only going to support Android. I'm going to support these particular types of devices. The reimbursement has to be defined. If you're not reimbursing the employee for that device, you have zero rights on that device pretty much. You got to give them a little bit of something for the use of that device. And then risks, liabilities, and disclaimers. But the biggest thing is, with that, you should employ a software called mobile device management in that bring your own device policy. If you're putting that device on your network, you should have to require that they install this agent, and you control this agent. You have complete control of that phone if you're going to do it. If you're not going to do that, don't allow the device on your network. It's not worth all those things I said to you before, all that extra productivity you're going to get out of them, all those things that you have before. It's not worth it because the data breach that's going to happen is probably going to cost you a lot more money than you got out of productivity. I'm going to guarantee it's going to cost you a lot more money, especially in the state of Massachusetts. If you have a data breach, you're going to have a problem, and we're going to hear more about that coming up. So the other thing that you can do is you can employ a VPN client from the device to communicate into it and do that. The other thing that I'd say is to go against a little bit of the cloud thing is you want to be careful about limiting the cloud access to cloud applications. People can easily, if they have access to your internal network, they can then take the data and by accident export it out into the cloud and circumvent and store it somewhere that you don't know it's being stored. So now you think you have protected data on your network, you think you have backed up data on your network, and all of a sudden you find out you don't have backed up data on your network because it was stored somewhere in a cloud by some user who probably didn't know any better. You need to really define what the use of the cloud will be and how it'll be used, and is it corporate use and is it sanctioned use? And if it is, your IT people need to be involved. They need to be able to get control of that. You need to subscribe to the paid version of these services, okay? Nothing in this world is free. So if you're going to use these services, pay for them, get on board with the company so that your IT people can have control of it. And make sure you define a clear line between your corporate data and personal data. And if you're going to have this mobile device management, which allows you to wipe a device, which is great. Okay, I leave my device, I'm traveling off the continent, I leave my device in the taxi, I quickly get on the phone, I call back here to my office, and my guys wipe my phone. It's great. But guess what happened when they wiped my phone? They wiped out 4 years of my kids' pictures and videos. And now I'm gonna sue the company because I lost 4 years of the life of my thing. You have to define that up front, because if you don't define that up front and you can't wipe the phone, you now have given that person's email, that person's data, everything that was on that phone to whoever picked up that phone and probably is going to sell that phone to somebody, and that information is going to be out there, and people all the time are sending all kinds of personal information in email inside the corporate server on our email systems, because for years IT has said you can send it internal, it's okay, it's on our server. Just never send it external. So they are hard programmed to know if I'm going to send it external, can't do that. But if I'm going to keep it internal, I can do that. So that's one of the other things. So what was that last question there that I had asked? Yeah. So if all these things don't scare you, they should. And you really do need to employ a professional to help you here if you don't know what you're doing. That's the biggest thing. And it's not going to cost you a lot of money. You get the BYOD thing written, and it's not going to cost you a lot of money. You get the MDM implemented and done. But what it is going to do is it's going to give you peace of mind, and you're going to have a protected network and make sure it's done. So, and most of all this can be outsourced for pretty low monthly fees. A lot of these things are available in certain cloud-based applications and things like that that make it very easy for you to deploy. So we're not talking huge dollars to protect yourself and still have all that flexibility of bring your own device. So it's going to be, you know, maybe $6-10 a month per device. That's pretty reasonable to make sure that you're protected, I would say. So anyway.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's Mark Ayotte from Ayotte Technologies. Our third panelist is good friend Helder Machado with Machado Consulting. Helder is a currently a business owner, but has a lot of background in technology, again at the high level of consulting and strategic information for executives of different organizations. Helder is also an active member of our service at this point in a reserve capacity, and he founded Machado Consulting in the late 2000s. It's based here in Worcester, and he has grown it to 15 employees at this point in time. Helder's topic will be data security. Helder Machado.
Thank you. So with all this, the cloud, mobility, it sounds really great. And there was a time where, you know, I related to the military, where there was a time where, you know, you knew where the front lines were, and you knew where, you know, you knew where you were, you knew where the enemy was, and that's the enemy. You point your weapons in that direction, and you engage them in that direction. And the times that we have today with Afghanistan and Iraq and in combat, that is no longer the case. There is no front lines. The front lines are always around you. It's 360 degrees. The battle is 360 degrees. And so with every application, every software, every device, everything that you do, including your employees' homes, you're now being probed. You're now being attacked from a security level, whether it's, you know, data, network, users, passwords, and whatnot. So how do you protect that from a perspective of an employer or an employee? What is the best way to do that? And so in the military, we have a thing called defense in depth. And similarly, we do the same thing in IT. And it starts with, as an outer layer, like your firewall. And so whether you're in the cloud-based solution or you have your own network, everyone should have a firewall. And some of this stuff seems like it's very common sense, but I can actually tell you there are times where we walk into businesses where they don't have a decent firewall protecting their information. So while it seems kind of common sense, I want to put it out there that you start with the basics and kind of you can work your way up. And you can get to, at the outer layer, intrusion detection systems that monitor certain signature patterns looking for known attacks or known vulnerabilities and whatnot, so that when that signature approaches your network, whether you're in the cloud or whether you're in your own home network or in the office most likely, it can deny that person any more access into the network. So looking at that, we break it down into the physical layer, physical security. And again, this applies to not only your office, it applies to if you're looking to outsource applications, you're looking to outsource cloud-based infrastructure, or even your employees' homes, which is probably where the most vulnerability is. If you haven't thought about that, what your employees are using for, they're gaining access into your network, so their network now becomes, as both panelists already have suggested, it's a gateway into your network. And so if they're attacked at their home PC, or if they're attacked with their own mobile device, that now has access into your network. And so you need to think about all of those ways of getting in. Sometimes it's very simple. The physical security is where your server is. How many people have in this room, and I like to do an interaction piece. I didn't do the slides. How many people have a server room where their server is situated? So minus us, yeah.
Yeah, minus.
So you have a dedicated server room. So HVAC, and the door is locked at all times. Okay, that's outstanding. A lot of times we find small to mid-sized businesses where, you know, where's the server? It's in the closet. It's like in a cubicle. So physical security, in the military, when I did IT security in the military, and we did like penetration testing and things like that, number one is if I can touch it, it's mine. Period. So if anybody, and you think that the physical security of the building is, well, okay, my employees are safe, everything's good. Who do you think cleans your office at night? The cleaning people. How well do you do? Do you have them sign your policies as far as information security? They should. The cleaning company should. So if someone, and we actually had a case where a cleaning person was using an employee's computers at night in the evening when they were coming in to do that. And they actually, it sent off, when we talk about web filtering, it sent off red flags as, some sites that were probably inappropriate being viewed at like 9, 10 o'clock in the evening. And we met with the business owner and said, hey, what's going on at night at your place on Bobby's computer? And he's like, I don't know, Bobby wasn't in yesterday. So, and then we come to find out it was a cleaning person using the person's computer to communicate back and forth with their family back in another country. Talk about alarm codes. So employee leaves the company. So security into the space. So you have the building, you have your office, you have your server room that's secure. Alarm codes. A lot of times employee leaves the company, nobody disables the alarm code. Nobody disables the card key. Do you change the locks on your front door every time an employee leaves? Most people don't. So, but that's a potential. The person could have made a copy of the key. So things like that. Physical security is obviously one of the things that's most obvious. Next in line, you talk about your network security, your router, your firewall, workstation operating systems. So basically keeping them up to date. If you're working with a managed service provider, as any of these of us up here, they'll make sure that your systems are maintained. A lot of people don't. They don't patch the systems. They don't update the firmware on the firewall. So things to think about in that sense. We talked about virtual private networks. Virtual private networks, for those of you who don't know, are basically a conduit from a public domain, like a Starbucks, or a home network connecting into your private network as your business, or possibly into a cloud infrastructure. Making sure that that data and that traffic that goes back and forth from the public to the private is encrypted. That's what happens over a VPN tunnel. Another one, we talked about everything here as far as mobility. Everybody kind of talked already about security. If you haven't heard enough of that, that's going to be the theme as far as going into the future. Security incidents just in the last year have rose 48%, and there's 42.8 million attacks every year. That's equivalent to over 117,000 attacks a day on our networks. So it's not getting smaller. It's growing every single year, whether it's through Africa, China, Russia. They know, and at some point, they don't have to attack today. They basically drop their seed. They can turn your computer. It doesn't matter whether you think you have valuable information or not. They can use your infrastructure to launch attacks on other companies, or to launch attacks for denial of service, or to gain information from other companies. A lot of our clients were like, well, we don't really have any information. We're not worried about it. Everybody knows everybody's passwords. It's a common theme, and unfortunately, humans in general just are lazy. We want things simple. We put out complex passwords, but we never change them. A complex password nowadays can be broken pretty quickly. The technology for the servers and the processing power can brute force attack, even an 8-character password within a few months. I mean, it doesn't take long. And you talk about data breaches like Target and some of the other companies that have had data breaches. All of your social security information, your credit card information, that's all out there. So it doesn't make too much of a difference to even have a complex password. You got to change it frequently. So having passwords, making sure that clients and your users are changing them frequently, having the policies. We talked briefly about policies and procedures. I think it starts there, because you need to define, and as was stated earlier, before you plunge into this, really define, plan accordingly. Start with your policies. What do you want to protect? How do you want to protect it? Draw up those policies, and then now you have basically a plan of attack on how you're going to deploy and defend your network, your infrastructure, your mobile devices, all of the things that are important, especially your data. And then the common sense things of like your firewall, making sure your systems are patched and updated, maintained. That's so important. Make sure that you have a trusted advisor as a managed service provider, one of those companies that are here today, to look after your information, protect your information. We talked about BYOD. BYOD is probably, as was stated earlier, such a powerful thing. Every one of my employees, back in the day when we first started, the employer provided me a cell phone. Said, here you go, we're going to pay for your cell phone, you got to pay for your plan. And I was like, this is pretty good, this is pretty cool. Then people started to get their own cell phones, and they were like carrying 2 devices. They had my work phone, my personal phone. You had your work laptop, maybe a personal laptop, and then eventually they just merged to now most companies don't even reimburse for cell phones a lot of times unless they do provide it. They let you use your own cell phone. Everybody has unlimited minute plans, and so it doesn't become a cost factor, but it becomes a huge security factor, as was talked about earlier. Having some kind of mobile device management to help you manage those devices. Some employees don't like that. I don't want, they may say, well, I don't want you to be able to control my device, to wipe the device, to know where I'm going or what I'm seeing or what I'm doing. There becomes this thing where there's this tight balance between security and being like Big Brother and monitoring their device. Unfortunately, in today's day and age, Big Brother is all around us, and we have security, and you have to protect your infrastructure. IT departments today, or managed service providers today, that's our number one concern. How do we possibly protect a client's network with all of these things? So now you no longer have this direct battlefield. Well, I protect the infrastructure, and it used to be the day where everything was blocked coming in except for email and stuff like that. But and everything was allowed out. We basically just allowed everything out. And then we had emails, spam generating and infecting companies not only inside but becoming an attack to attack other companies and going through your address book, and the I love you virus that sent out an I love you message to everybody in your address book and infected repeated networks. So then we started saying, okay, we don't trust anybody outside the network, and we trust limited inside the network where we can only allow certain communications to go out. And as you can see, it just gets more and more complex with the different devices. And now your vulnerabilities are 360 degrees all around you, and you have to protect not only your network, you have to protect your home network, you have to protect the cloud-based network, make sure that that's being protected, making sure that all of that is living up to your policies and the plan that you put together. In addition to all of that, you have to back up all the data. You have to make sure that in the event that something happens to your infrastructure, your data is not only protected in real time, but also if the event that the physical structure of the building should go down or the server should have a meltdown, that your information is protected and secure. And where is that stored? So we had a client that used to take the backup drives home with them and put it in, so they would take it, put it in their car got broken into, the hard drive got stolen. So there goes all your company data now just walked out the door of the company. So making sure that not only you have all of this in place, but there are contingencies in place to protect the data once it leaves your company. So for example, whether it's a cloud-based backup solution or whether you take the drive home or backup off-site. I think right now, number one in spending for 2015, the number one thing that small to mid-sized businesses are going to spend is in security. Everything, you not only think about security in the sense of just protecting your network, but now protecting the data wherever it lies. And so today, it lies everywhere. It lies in your cell phones, your tablets, your mobile devices, your laptops, to some degree in your clients' home networks, your users' home networks. So if you're not afraid about security today, or you're not afraid about doing business today, I thought, and I listened to all of you talk, and I'm like, gosh, why would anybody want to go in business today when you have to worry about all of these things? But here we are, we're all in business, and we step up for this challenge, but it is definitely a challenge. So thank you very much.
It's Helder Machado Consulting. We're going to pop into question and answer. Here's the contact information for our panelists. There are business cards and information on the back table if you wish to take them. Do you have any questions for our panelists? Yes, sir.
Is there any kind of certification, security certifications for cloud companies? So you know, like this is a standard, you know, in order to have this level of security, you have this standard established.
Do you want to take that?
Yeah, you know, I think there are levels of security that engineers should have. And then you want to make sure that whoever's implementing the secure infrastructure has those levels of security. But, you know, you can put a lot of emphasis on security certifications and whatnot. It really depends on how it's deployed and how it's maintained. But as it was stated earlier, I mean, this is their livelihood. It's got to be protected. Whatever you go, usually with an outsourced service, and I know there's a little bit of points here. I mean, cloud is it's how much pain can you take, and the security is you know, some of my clients are like, don't talk to me about cloud. I don't want to know about it. I don't trust anybody. I trust my network. But and to some extent, I get that. But when all you do and your business is reliant on that infrastructure, you are not compromising anywhere. You are making sure every server is backed up, the firewalls are kept up to date, everything's maintained, and you have that 99.9999% uptime for your clients that you're providing those services to. So, is there a set standard? I don't think there might be, but there are.
So a lot of cloud providers, the question is there a set standard of security certifications at cloud providers? It's which security certifications are relevant to you as their customer when you go looking. And so there's some basic ones that are out there that most cloud providers should have at this point. The first one is coded, don't ask me what it stands for, SSAE 16. Right? It actually comes from the accounting side of the fence that says this company or this cloud service provider has a security protocol that meets industry standards, and there are committees that manage what those standards are, and they have a mechanism to track whether or not they're following the protocol and what happens if they think there's a violation. And that it's actively tested multiple times per year in a programmatic way. It used to be known as SAS 70. So if any vendor comes to you and says, hey, we're SAS 70 compliant, look at them and say, welcome to 2014, because that's when that standard expired. SSA 16 has been the new one. Now within SSA 16, there's multiple levels. There's what's known as SOC 2, which is a basic level of security. Then there's SOC 1, which is much higher and much more stringent. There's a number of ISO standards in the 27000 series that deal with different aspects of cloud computing and security as well. You can also, depending on the function of the system, ask specifically about FINRA certification, if it's involved investments, high-tech, HIPAA, in medical practices, SEC, Section 17. There are third-party entities that now will audit a cloud service provider and provide a ruling on whether or not they certified. It's not enough to know they're certified, know when they were certified and how often their certification is being reviewed. Most companies will do the certification annually or biannually. A really good company will go through the protocols to be recertified every 6 months, even though it's not required. If not, having an ongoing program. So it's really one of matching what you want to do. The other thing is you look at cloud services, particularly with what we've talked about with mobility here, is look for how they handle mobile security. So when we work with services, for example, that will keep your company data totally separate from your personal data on a cell phone device, so that there's a personal contact list and a company contact list. So if there is a wipe necessary, the company will wipe the company data, and if the person hasn't backed up their own personal data, they're tough loss. And so there are those options out there. And again, it was also to a point that most of this, while it sounds really daunting and scary, which is okay, it should be, it is very manageable, and it's manageable in a very affordable and effective way. And the benefits can be pretty significant to the business.
Mark, did you have anything to push in?
No, they both hit it right on, especially on the certification of the data centers and stuff and all that. So he hit the nail on the head with what he said on that. So again, only thing I'd add is also the encrypting of the data on the cell phones and on your tablets and such. Force encryption of that data. When you deploy your policies, force the encryption of the data of the cell phone. It's going to make it a nightmare for the user, is the problem, sometimes to get their data back from the cell phone without encryption things and stuff like that. But what it is doing is making sure if that cell phone does fall into the wrong hands, that data can't be extracted, especially your company data. You got to encrypt it. And that's the other thing, mobility-wise, like your laptops and things, if those aren't encrypted and you don't have those hard drives encrypted today, go out tomorrow and employ encryption on those hard drives. That's where we lose our data. That's where our data breaches happen. That's where they start. We do as he said, we do a really great job of protecting from the outside in. We've got that really well. It's that 360-degree protection that is, you have to have it all. So
it's like a data at rest policy.
Yeah.
We call it in the military data at rest. One of my buddies who had come back from Iraq, they had lost so many thumb drives overseas where they were moving top secret and sometimes just even secret information going around. And they lost thumb drives. One time he went by this little bazaar, and there was a woman there with a table, and it had like 20 government thumb drives there. Like you can grab whatever thumb drive you want. Of course, there was no data on them, but they were selling them just like crazy. So the military eventually did do away with the thumb drives. They no longer have any kind of remote movable device. But we don't do that today for our employees. So not only is our data protected, again, you could do all of this, have a great policy. The encryption is key. So having thumb drives, and if you're putting client data or even company data on those thumb drives, having them encrypted, that is key. I would guarantee you that most companies don't do that, but they should. And that way, if you do lose the thumb drive, which we all do lose a thumb drive once in a while, that data is protected.
We have just a couple minutes. Any other questions?
I was going to ask Helder, you talk about obviously things being all around us, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm a pretty intelligent guy, but I'm even puzzled by half the stuff that hits me. Like, with LinkedIn, you're getting all these strange people trying to connect with you every day, and they're using other people's pictures. And what on earth is this guy trying to connect with me for?
Right.
People are calling to the office asking you for your copier machine, model number and stuff, and you're just puzzled. But you talk about spending a lot on the security aspects of it, but how come you don't see companies doing better jobs of hiring companies to come in and actually train the employees and say, listen, here's, because you think it's common sense, but half the time it's not common sense. My parents keep forwarding me, emails. If you send this to 20 people, you're gonna get good luck or something. I'm like, how on earth could you not figure out something? Seems a little strange about that.
It's a great point, and you can have all the greatest technology. You can spend all the money you need to and protect everything, but the number one weakest link is your people. And the social engineering aspect, what you're describing, is always going to be a vulnerability. That is going to be your weakest link into your network. We used to run, when I was at Fidelity Investments as an engineer there, we would run tests. We would call the new person and say, hi, it's Bobby in IT, can I have your password? You would not believe how many people say, oh yeah, here's my password.
Yeah.
It happens all the time. With regards to that, they've done a lot of attacking on elderly people that are not as educated on the system. So even if you train people, but you just have to reinforce it. So there should be annual training done at all times, and you never can let up on that, because that would be your
who do you find out? You guys run the business. Because I worked for Comcast for 5 years. They had a couple of web trainings that you would do, but it was minimal.
Yeah.
Most companies don't, even if they think about doing the training, they don't do it. Someone once told me that,
Do it well.
security training for your employees, it's like a company-wide colonoscopy, right? It's really important. It can prevent some really serious problems down the road, but nobody enjoys it. Even if you're sedated at the time, right? So but it is something that I think all of us.
I want to go to your training.
No, but it is something that's necessary. An easy way to do it is there's so many things now that companies, from a regulatory standpoint, are required to do on an annual or periodic basis, whether it's harassment or equal opportunity training, or companies now do benefits training, so employees know how to manage their benefit programs most effectively. We always recommend timing and tying that in, right? So it's almost like now it's time for your annual company operations or administration training. We're going to cover the harassment rules, we're gonna cover appropriate use of technology, we're gonna cover security, we're gonna cover safety, driving around the parking lot, whatever it has to be. And sort of blend it in so it becomes a normal part of the daily discussion. Yeah, and crush the thumb drives, don't use them. USB drives.
Mark, any quick words before we wrap up?
Crush the thumb drives is like number one, but along with what they said is don't let your kids and your parents on your network. That's going to be number one, because like I separate them off our network. And even my home network, my wife and I are the only two people allowed on one of our networks. Everybody else is on the other side. They're not allowed in because I don't know what they're going to bring in, especially my parents. I mean, they're the worst. So seriously, and we're rebuilding machines in our household on a regular basis because kids are putting things on things. I mean, there's so much malware on websites and just on the most benign things that you can't protect from it all. The best thing you can do is mitigate, and that's what we try to do. On the written information security policy, you should just be forcing every employee to read it again every year at a minimum, even if you're not doing the training. Reread it again and acknowledge that they've read it again. They may not read it, they may read it, but maybe if you offer a $25 gift certificate to the actual person who finds the word inside it that you embed in it, they'll read through and get it. But there's some tricks you can do that we found with things, and that's one of the ones, a gift card. You put a little word in the middle of it somewhere, and you say, whoever comes back to us and tells us the word, like it could be Rumpelstiltskin, it's in the middle of the policy somewhere, tells us that word, you get a $25 gift certificate. It's the weirdest word in the most benign place, but it gets them to read it. Anything you can do to get people to reread it, because they forget, and they're lazy. And they forget how important it is. And make sure your written security information policy isn't so dry that it's what you use to fall asleep. I mean, if you write it like a real document, like a book that makes it interesting on what can happen if these breaches do occur, what the liability is to the company, and let the employee know the value of security to the company, where they could lose their job. I mean, companies can go out of business because of security problems. We're not all TJX and Target and stuff that can survive a security breach. I mean, my accountant, his biggest fear is a security breach. I mean, he is so paranoid. He doesn't even have a Wi-Fi network. That's how paranoid he is. Everybody is hardwired jacked. He will not look at cloud applications because he knows that one security breach, he's out of business and stuff. And Gavin and I share a common customer who says the same thing. One security breach, he is out of business. He will not survive it. So the biggest thing is you really have to be vigilant about it, especially if you're a business owner. You got to be on it all the time. It keeps you up at night. I mean, it's the world we live in now.
Yeah, I think.
Pardon me. Alan Falcon, Mark Ayotte, Alder Machado. We just have a few minutes in this room. There's another seminar coming in for 3:30, so if you wish to engage directly, you may.